Welcome back, everyone. I'm the Depressed Kayura, and this is Langrisser Mobile Apex Season 11. Alright, so this week was very busy for me, but it wasn't as bad as what I had to do with all the Ragnarok stuff. Since the Ragnarok stuff is done, I don't have to worry about it until new stages come up, which is kind of nice. I did go through a couple of losses leading into this match. More or less, I'm finding kind of similar boxes nowadays. It's a lot of assassins. For the most part, I did take a tally to see what sort of characters I've been running into and what sort of characters I'm using. And for the most part, majority of people use kind of the same 9 characters, including myself. And then you kind of just see a little bit of variation beyond those 9. So it's just something you kind of have to deal with. So one thing I was running into was Epsilon becoming more and more of a problem for me. He is kind of everything that Tsubame and Zerda wish they were. High mobility, faster setup, less restrictive setup, and the ability to stealth without... the only restriction for his stealth compared to the other Tsubame's is he just has to be at full HP and away from everyone else when he sets it up. So it's a bit rough. And then, of course, every time he kills, he gets a barrier and a self-heal. And that barrier essentially acts as a self-res almost, because it allows him to just tank a hit in most cases. So I usually ban Cherie. I would do something like ban Cherie Lucretia before I even touch Epsilon. And in the future, I think I'm going to probably ban Cherie, or not ban Epsilon before I ban Cherie. Cherie can be very annoying with her high mobility and act again, but she doesn't have stealth. She also can't faction buff herself, and that faction buff is not part of the setup for Epsilon. It's kind of ridiculous. For Zerda, she has to faction buff herself, and she has to set up her 3C to actually kind of get her full potential out. And during those 2 turns, she has to be outside the danger zone, which can be pretty difficult with this high mobility play. Anyway, with that being said, so like I said, I was going to ban Epsilon over Cherie. So first I banned Wehtam because that's still a staple for me. My opponent banned Zerda first. I don't know why. And they picked Epsilon first, completely thwarting my plan of banning Epsilon. So with that in mind, this is out of the matches I did this week, this is the only one that had Rostam, and I did not want to deal with it. I generally do not like dealing with Lucretia because of her long range, AoE potential, and the fact that she can self-res and all that nonsense. But since Epsilon has a faction buff, I was like, I don't want to deal with any additional assassins, so I was knocking those out. Grab Rozenciel as my first pick. They go after my assassins, no big deal. Goes for Verner there. So at this point I was like, alright, cool, I'll get rid of Lucretia and Autokrato, because Autokrato is a problem. He's also kind of a sub-tank, so I figured I was going to take care of that and then potentially ban the tanks if I need to. And if my opponent does really want a physical tank, they would have to pick one now. So I take IronBlood. They start banning more of my long legs and assassins. They take Hilda, which is a bit annoying, but it's not the end of the world. Her ability to negate crits is always a problem. So at this point I was like, alright, we'll get rid of your remaining assassin, get rid of your teleport. So that leaves essentially 3 healers, a tank, and Bozel. I have Rozenciel, so Bozel's not really a problem. Surprisingly, this was the only match that had Bozel in it. I did have a match that had Kruger in it, but Bozel seems to be kind of not something you see very often anymore. Silvaria, as you can see, I kind of have the 1-2-3 setup as usual. So nothing too special here. They take Rozenciel as a healer, so that leaves 2 healers and potentially Bozel and a tank. So obviously they already have a healer, but the remaining healers are act-agains and potentially mobility increases, so I was going to go ahead and ban them anyway. Besides that, what they left me with is Pirotess, which people always underestimate. So yeah, ban their healers. They take Lucretia. I was kind of okay with taking Lucretia because I was pretty confident that I could take out Hilda. Hilda just does not survive Lucretia that well. Christiane's a different story, but if she does take Christiane, I can always attack in a way that makes Hilda do the guarding. So at this point, they get rid of my tank. I wasn't going to bring one because all my potential threats are assassins. And I didn't really care about Helena because they had Hilda, so it wasn't that big of a deal. So they take Christiane, so I was like, alright, cool, I don't have to worry about Bozel then. So I take Pirotess, just to have more assassins. So this is a pretty good setup. I have a faction buff that hits everybody but Pirotess, because everyone's Empire except for her. But just to take care of the attack buff for Pirotess, I did bring attack buff, mass attack for IronBlood Commander. Everything else is pretty much the same. Yeah, the usual kit. And then nothing too special about our opponents here. Rozenciel did bring sorceresses, which could mean that she has a way of negating fixed damage, because she has the same class as the soldier type. But the reason why you would have something like fixed negation is so you can actually tank something using Shrine Maidens. So her having sorceresses and negating a fixed damage hit doesn't really bother me that much. It's only really a big deal if you're using casters, which I'm using a few, but they're not going to be the ones that kill Rozenciel. Standard kit Werner here with sneak attack, it looks like. I don't know what else he usually would take. State guards as the troops is pretty common. Hilda went phalanxes and then standard full guard setup. Alright, so with that, as always, it's all about figuring out what Epsilon and Verner are going to do. I think part of the reason why this match went a little bit easier for me is almost all the times I have to deal with Epsilon, after he does his faction buff, he usually gets either a breeze proc or someone gives him a Tenyo breeze, in which case he just has an insane amount of mobility. So at this point, Werner is most likely not in a riposte stance because he's next to somebody, but he did proc breeze, which pretty much kills any opportunity for me to actually kill him, because in order for me to actually be in range, I would have to go here and be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Well, actually, sorry. His range is higher. His range is actually +2, so he actually has a 4 range attack with Rending Blow. So his attack goes all the way to here, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So if I were to get Sylvaria set up for sniping him, he would have initiative and kill me first. So it doesn't really work. So with that in mind, I was like, alright, well, can't work with that. And this is purely because of the breeze proc. If he hadn't, I would have been able to set up mostly safely, though there's always the risk of getting a Tenyo breeze from Rozenciel. In any case, I went ahead and just moved up. There's not really any way for me to prevent the assassination attempt from happening, so I'm just getting set up now. But one thing that did happen is, thanks to the formation buff here, I'm actually in range to attack Werner with Pirotess. Now, best case scenario is they would move somebody else first, and then I could just move in and do the assassination. But if Hilda moves first, then I'm gonna have to deal with the crit aura negation thing, which unfortunately that's what my opponent did. Dominating formation doesn't really do anything. I'm not gonna be next to them. In any case, I was like, well, this is my one opportunity because Werner's gonna go first anyway. So yeah, did some fixed damage, crit negated. So how much damage did I do? Not too bad. I needed to do a little. I think I had to do over 24,000, and I did about 27. That's without a crit. Her damage is pretty high when she procs her visitor from the Dark Kingdom. So that worked out pretty well. Also, the Verner did not have a faction buff. I think he's Meteor faction, but I'm not sure. So that's why I went ahead and did the attack now. It did put a barrier and a stack on Epsilon, but that's not really a big deal at this point. He has to spend a round setting up. I fall back, but there's no way I'm going to get out of range. With the Supernova buff, he's going to be well within range at this point. Yeah, he can hit from here. He's just in range. That's fine. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and get everyone else set up. So unfortunately, due to positioning, there's no way for me to actually be... The only place I would be in range to actually snipe Rozenciel would be to go right here. And unfortunately that is within Epsilon's attack range with his expanded skill range. So I went ahead and just set up here just as a buffer, but more than likely if Epsilon just moves really close, Silvaria is not going to do as much damage. So yeah, gonna go ahead and get your first strike in. Yep, no way of surviving that. Yeah, he still has his barrier up, and he got a bunch of stacks. The stacks can't be dispelled, right? Yeah, they can't be dispelled. So he has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 buffs. I can dispel 5 of them. So odds are I'll probably be able to get rid of the barrier. I am Holy Class, so I should be able to do pretty good damage. I think I was a bit reluctant because I remember the last time I did something like this, but it was with Alicia, and Alicia wasn't actually able to get the kill, even when taking down the barrier. But with a Holy Class, it was more than enough. Way more than enough. That was like 57,000 damage. So yeah, with this, it's now 2 tanks and a healer versus 3 DPS and a healer. And at this point, my opponent gives up. So yeah, quick and simple. The other matches, unfortunately, there's not really much to show about them. Tsubame is not able to kill a Helena that's in her special terrain and in forest. It just doesn't work. That's a lesson I keep reteaching myself every few months. Besides that, the other issue I ran into was just Epsilon himself. I did run into a lot of boxes kind of similar to the one I just fought here, where they would actually bring tanks and use tanks to kind of back up Epsilon any way they can to kind of just help soak up hits, in which case then Epsilon can just focus on my guard bypassing units. And even if it didn't go after my guard bypassing units, if I only have one guard bypass, obviously the bubble will just soak the hit, in which case, okay, whatever, my Epsilon will just kill another unit and get it back. And during that time, you know, the tanks will cover from anything from like Lucretia and such. So, but one thing I did find out during those tank pushes is Hilda cannot survive against Lucretia at all now. I do have higher intelligence now because of the buffs that we gotten from the Ragnarok stuff. So I technically have a little bit higher attack power now. So that's probably part of the reason why it's a lot easier to just pump out damage. I also have the enchant as well. So all that does add up to a little bit extra damage. In any case, so yeah, with that, I didn't really make much progress here. I had 2 losses and a win. So that pretty much puts me kind of in the same area I was before. So gradually my win rate's going to be probably around 50-50 like usual. That's pretty much it on my end. I'm going to be trying to get back into putting up other videos as well. At the end of the month, I should hopefully have a bit more breathing room as far as work is concerned. So I'm just going to try to push my way through for till then. So till next week, I'm Dieharte. This was Langrisser Mobile Apex Season 11. I'll see you guys later.